Alright, so I don't normally do this. I usually have some sort of script and I take lots of time to plan and read over the script to make sure that everything's perfect, but that's not going to be the case here, and usually when someone is this passionate about something, that something is usually really good or really bad, and it's the latter in this case. So let's start from the beginning. I got a beta key for Overkill's The Walking Dead. I was really excited to play it, and I was actually almost considering pre-ordering it. But the thing that was really holding me back was the price point. This thing's $60, and that's a little much for me to just go in blind. I've learned from my mistakes after pre-ordering Duke Nukem Forever.
What about the game, Duke? Was it any good?
Yeah, but after 12 years, it should be.
So what did I get in this beta? I got a game that's a split between the only mode that it should have been, and a Wave Defender mode that is so ridiculously boring that I felt like I was playing a free-to-play game, but it's not. It's $60. But let me just get into this. The biggest mistake here is that Overkill took their Payday 2 AI and didn't improve it at all. I like Payday, it's fun, you're playing the role of a bank robber, and the hundreds of cops that show up feel way more appropriate to deal with as 4 bank robbers that are terrorizing their way through the city. And I don't expect anything more from it other than mass quantities of dumb AI lighting me up as I wait for an escape. It is what it is, and I think that what it does is perfectly fine. It doesn't feel appropriate when you're 4 survivors duking it out against hundreds of other survivors. And you might be thinking, I thought this game was about zombies, and it is to an extent. But they want to have this overarching narrative of you and your crew are up against the rival gang called the Family. And maybe this 4v100 scenario changes after you recruit survivors into your camp, but the premise still feels silly in this context.
Walkers. They're predictable. Humans? That's another story.
You're sitting here defending wave after wave, and this guy is telling you, oh, watch out, the family's gonna be here at any moment. And it's like, okay, why don't we shut the gates and, set up some form of proper defense? And they just keep flooding into the open gates trying to steal your stuff, and it just feels stupid. The other version of this Wave Defender mode replaces the family with zombies. Of course, your team is smart enough to start with the gates closed this time, but that doesn't matter because the zombie SWAT team battering rams them off the goddamn hinges. You are then required to grab some boards and use them to repair the gates. You repair all 3 and then the next wave happens. That's what you do. That's a mode that someone cooked up over at Overkill headquarters. They just sat there going, yes, I'm having fun, this is fun. Hey Jim, are you ready to do a little play testing? Haha, you know it, Dave. What fun we'll have boarding up those gates. Okay, I've played a lot of Call of Duty Nazi Zombies in my day, and I would rather fire up my Xbox 360 and pop in World at War than play this. I think I knew I was in trouble when I launched the game and looked at the characters' faces, and I wasn't quite sure where they were looking. Like their eyes were doing this spacing out thing where they're kind of looking through what they're looking at. I don't know what the hell that's about. It feels like Overkill's trying to do too much. They're sitting here going, well, we gotta have the defense game mode, and the rival survivors, and, the Left 4 Dead game mode, of course, in which you gather fuel and fuses for generators as you progress through the city. Like, really? You're going through town, and you run into a closed gate, the only way you can go for some dumb reason, and the generator is the thing that powers it for some dumb reason, and it needs both fuel and new fuses, which are all lying around the vicinity for some dumb reason. My favorite part is the part where you need to use the forklift, in multiple areas, by the way. And the only way it will start is after consuming 4 canisters of gas. What? I know how vehicles work. I only need enough petrol to get this bad boy on. It's not like I'm trying to take it for a spin. The bar for this genre is literally a game from 2009, and yet I would rather play that than go through this recreation of it. It doesn't do it better. It's trying to be the stealthy version of Left 4 Dead, and it's failing at doing even that much. Think about a game like Dying Light, which exists as a prime example of a good, closer to modern day zombie game. It has parkour elements and originality, and the parts that aren't as original are done pretty goddamn well. And I get that you want your game to resemble Left 4 Dead a little more, but do it right! They want to mix in this Walking Dead trope of noise attracts them, move silently, which is a cool concept, but only if it's done near flawlessly. I know it seems like I'm being harsh, but you have to remember, and I don't know if I've mentioned this at all yet, but the game is being released as a full release for $60. I'm just sitting here killing a zombie with a stick, and my character's just screaming at this point.
I'm opening the gate!
Good job. Now keep moving.
The zombies don't hear the screaming, of course, but they do hear the stick. So you beat one zombie with a stick, and then another couple come running at the stick, so you have to hit them with the stick. And you just kind of do this for a while. Because you only have so much silencer on your sniper rifle, so you gotta kind of stick to the melee weapons as much as you can. And I realized that this would be an expedited process with 4 people, as I was just kind of playing alone. So I acknowledge that much, and I'll be a little more forgiving with this particular grievance. But all in all, that is 60% of these levels. You walk around, scavenging stuff, looking for loot, occasionally beating a zombie with a stick, and then just kind of bumbling around while these zombies non-threateningly saunter after you. I guess it just got boring almost immediately. And I get that realistically, the old guy with the cane shouldn't be space jamming walkers with it for one-hit KOs. But I'd also realistically close the goddamn gates if I were under siege. So what I'm saying is that Overkill has already sacrificed some of their realism for fun, so why not make this old man's Native American rain stick do some real damage? I mean, you can switch off to one of the other characters if you want a melee weapon that isn't the equivalent of tickling the zombies into submission, but even lopping their heads off with the support class gets boring pretty fast. At least the old guy sounds like a gremlin.
Nothing here. I'll take it. Hey, got some more food and water.
Now, all that being said, I really do see the potential here for the game to be a lot better if they just stuck to a single format and then expanded into different game modes or types from there. But they proceed to wreck the best part of their game with the inclusion of these rival survivors at every turn. I get that they wanted to pilot this narrative of your camp versus the family, but it really doesn't feel fun when I walk into a heavily watched alleyway with these stupid idiots that will just fire their loud-ass guns at anything that moves. Like, you get this noise meter at the top of your screen at all times, and every time it fills, the area becomes more and more infested by walkers. Well, guess what that means? Every time you get into a kerfuffle with these Borderlands enemies, they scream and shoot at you, filling the meter more. I even tried sneaking in, and these dicks went into red alert when they encountered a roving walker, auto-detecting exactly where I was hiding and unloading on my frail old man body. This was with one person, so my guess is that with 4 people trying to coordinate a Navy SEALs mission to activate a forklift probably would have gone about the same. As much as the human AI is a hindrance to this game, so is the zombie AI. And for a different reason. I understand that zombies are supposed to be pretty stupid, and I also realize that they don't tend to sprint as much unless something big happens, and that's all well and good, but you have to understand that these guys don't climb. They don't do anything too nutty besides shamble at you while you go about your business. I'm safe as long as I'm behind something that they have to walk around. In fact, there were plenty of times when I would almost stand still in the middle of the street and just kind of hammer away at them with my melee weapon. The balance between the easiness of fighting just zombies, which was by far the easiest part of the game, and fighting the survivors, which are stupid, but there are a lot of them and they attract more zombies to fight at the same time, is just plain unreasonable.
Boom shakalaka!
And again, I'm fully aware that this game is likely balanced around having a 4-man squad, so I get that I'm doing that to myself. But it is pure agony to cakewalk through an entire level, only to get fisted at the end of it by the dumbest AI of 2018. There isn't much beyond these fundamental flaws besides random nonsensical BS that tends to crop up repeatedly. For instance, every survivor tends to have a lockpick on them so that they can pick locks. Whoa. And you can pick locks on things like weapon stashes or open up shortcuts that are safer, etc. And that's a fine mechanic, sure, but when you get to a particular lock that doesn't need to be picked because you have to break it to progress through the story, through the level, and you just wrap your fat Hulk hands around the lock and snap it in two like a twig or something, I always expect to be down a lockpick when this happens. But it doesn't seem to be the case with these lesser locks. It's just ridiculous. Zombie apocalypse games are done. Done. So if you want to make a new one in 2018, then it needs to be amazing. It needs to be amazing. And it needs to have awesome new mechanics. And it needs to feel really good to play. The stealth can't be the, "Hey, what was that?" of Payday, with these hawk-eyed enemies sensing you through the ether. It is so goddamn sad because the idea of sneaking through an infested city, trying not to make noise while collecting items for the camp is a fun idea, if it's done right. And I do admit that this was the best part of the game, but it still just fell short in everything that it tried to accomplish. I get that I'm being super harsh on a game that's in beta, and I apologize for my lack of leniency, but the game comes out in 10 or so days, and it feels like a $30 early access title, and that's being generous.
Who's there? Oh, you're... What the fuck? Come out.
Fine, I give up. Whatever.
I have a ton of hours in Payday 2. I have a ton of hours in Left 4 Dead. They're some of my most played games on Steam, and I had big expectations for Overkill to knock this one out of the park. And they just blew it. I would be so much more forgiving if the game was coming out at a lesser price because I see so much potential that it could be harnessed to make a great game. And who knows, maybe there's some radical new changes that they're planning on dropping in the next upcoming 10 days, but I honestly doubt it. Anyways, yeah, that's about it. I don't normally do rants like this, and if I do, they're a little more, structured. So I apologize. I just figured that if I manage to save one person's money on this game, then my job here is complete. That's it. Have a good one.